What is it like to be at the helm of a short line railroad that has been in business for over 100 years? Today on the Roundhouse, we're going to talk to the president of the Mississippi Export Railroad. All aboard!
In days past, the roundhouse was where the railroad worker united with the steam locomotive, each to prepare for the journey ahead. Today, it's where we examine the history, the industry, the machines, the hobby, and the passion behind railroading. News, interviews, stories, and more. So climb aboard. This is The Roundhouse.
Welcome to the Roundhouse. I'm your host, Nick Ozarek, and this is episode number 147 of our Trains and Railroading podcast, where we're talking about everything in the industry and the hobby, you name it, and we discuss it. The Roundhouse podcast is a production of Streamliner Media, here to address your digital marketing and video production needs and specializing in the freight and tourist railroad industries. If that seems like something that benefit your company, go to streamlinermedia.com. Today, we are talking to Kate Luce Bourgeois, the president of Mississippi Export Railroad, a short line Class 3 railroad in southern Mississippi, a railroad that has over 100 years of history as an independent freight carrier. We're going to talk to her about what it means to be part of that business and how they invest in their industry and their community. Before we get to that, though, I'd like to thank those of you who are supporting the Roundhouse podcast on Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can be supporting the work that we do here. I want to give shout outs to Mehul Bedaria and Jared Delachiza. Sorry if I got either of those names wrong, but it's great to have your support. I appreciate it. And I want to thank the Mechanical Services Department of the Strasburg Railroad for sponsoring this episode. Learn more at mechanical.strasburgrailroad.com. Our guest today is the president of the Mississippi Export Railroad. Please welcome to the Roundhouse, Mrs. Kate Luce Bourgeois.
Hi, Nick. Thank you for having me.
Our conversation comes at a good time. We started setting up this interview, and then Railway Age announces you guys as the 2024 short line of the year. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. We're really excited. I'm in the very fortunate position to work with a terrific team, and we've had a fun and challenging almost decade of working quite hard to grow and diversify our business. And so it's nice to be recognized. And we've got a lot left to do, but I work with great people. And I must also say in that we have terrific customers and partners in our other railroads, trucking companies, etc.
Provide us with an overview of the Mississippi Export Railroad.
The Mississippi Export is a 42-mile long short line railroad that runs north to south from Lucedale, Mississippi to Pascagoula, Mississippi, where there is the port of Pascagoula. When the infrastructure was built in the late 1800s, the railroad was twice as long. It was about 84 miles and ran north beyond Lucedale into the state of Alabama. And the railroad went through various iterations over its first, I think, 3 or 4 decades of trying to make its way financially. And by the way, there's more of that history on our website, which is mserr.com. But the company eventually went kaput in 1920. It went bankrupt. And in 1922, my great-great-grandfather reformed the company out of bankruptcy. So he put together a small investor group And he decided, I'm not sure why, that to make the railroad a going concern, the viable portion of the line was that which exists today, that portion that runs south out of Loosedale to Pascagoula. And my great-great-grandfather, Gregory Luce, was interested in the railroad because he was in the forest products business. He had come to the South from Michigan to source wood for his family's furniture business. At that time, trees or timber were not treated as a crop like they are today. So when you would cut down timber in the 1800s, you would not replant it. You would turn the land into something else. And so he came to South Mississippi and found timber and needed a way to move his wood back to their furniture store or their furniture building operation, but also into other markets. And then he got into farming because he took that land that he had bought and cleared and turned it into farmland. And then he got into canning because he needed to do something with the vegetables that he was growing. And a kind of neat thing, there's a family here on the coast called the Marvers who are long-term investors in this business. And my grandfather always told me the Marvers are in the seafood business, and we couldn't fill up a boxcar with our canned goods to get to market, and the Marvers couldn't fill up a boxcar with their seafood. And so we would share a boxcar with the Marvers to get our product to market. But anyway, as I was saying, my great-great-grandfather put this company back together. And Nick, for our business, the things that I think make us special and that we talk a lot about are our people. We have great people who really care and treat this business like their owners. And what that means to us is taking care of the infrastructure, taking care of our customers. Speaking of the infrastructure, we put our money back in the business right away that we make, first and foremost, to continue to make the infrastructure stronger, safer, because that benefits our people and our customers and the communities that we get to operate in and work with. And then we keep looking for ways to grow the business. And I mentioned earlier the past 10 years, because that's where I've been in the really fortunate position to at least have my name, high up on the website or something. But our little railroad continues to exist 102 years after inception as Mississippi Export because of the work that our people have done to take care of our customers and to find new ways or new products to move. And so if you look back to the days of my great-great-grandfather, that was about getting what is now International Paper, getting tied in with a mill that they had in Moss Point, Mississippi, which was a huge part of our business for the first 7 decades, was moving product for that mill. If you walk through the generations of Luce's, Gregory Marston's, Luce's son, Jex, really got the company through the Depression and the war. And then my grandfather, Dwayne, played an important role in recruiting the Southern Company subsidiary, Mississippi Power, to build a coal burning power plant on our railroad in the 60s. And that plant has been a vital part of our railroad since it was constructed. And not only have they been a vital customer, but the Southern Company has been a terrific partner, and that they work closely with us in pursuing new business because they want to sell more power. We want to move more rail cars. Our incentives are pretty well aligned, but they're good people. They're terrific partners. Um, I, my father, Greg Luce, spent a lot of time repairing sites through these site certification programs where you can say sites are shovel ready, and then recruiting customers onto those sites. He played a role in the development of an industrial park in Lucedale, Mississippi that we serve, and where In Vivo Biomass now has a wood pellet mill. He recruited Tyndall to move their production of preformed, pre-stressed concrete structures to our railroad. So continuing to look for growth and working with our partners is vital to what we do. And I was recently reading old minutes of the board, and I found a letter. Really, my aunt found this letter for me that my great grandfather had written to the general manager of the railroad. And I think this was in 1954. My great grandfather had cancer, and they were talking about the fact that my grandfather would be coming in as the president of the railroad, and why he would be a good person to do that and how we would develop him. But more importantly, what was so interesting to me in reading that letter was that my great grandfather was talking about the things that they valued in this business and, the 1950s and what they needed to keep their eye on. And you know what, Nick? It was the same things we're talking about today. It was people, it was investing in infrastructure, and it was taking care of our customers. So, anyway, that's sort of the family history with the railroad. And if you'd like me to, I can speak more about all the things we do for our customers today.
As I was researching more about your railroad, it was so fascinating to come across photos from the 30s and 40s of your company when it was still running steam locomotives, because it's so rare to have a short line that survived the Depression, that took out a lot of the players, and is still in existence as an independent carrier. And from what you say, it sounds like that's been sort of a deliberate objective, is maintaining your independence. What do you attribute as the factors to being able to still own your own house, so to speak?
Probably luck, most of all, but luck and people are the big things there. My grandfather used to tell me that he remembered when they had to sell stock on the side of the road to make payroll. He also used to tell me about eating onions like they were apples during the Depression. Um, I think we've been really fortunate to be located where we are geographically, because there's a lot of industry around here, and an industrious mindset. If people want to work, they want to create growth. And it seems like in the US, people are moving south. So hopefully that continues to benefit this business. In terms of ownership, we have had basically the same ownership since the beginning, or for the majority of the time. And I think we have partners in this business who are committed to the railroad and feel good about the investment. I think what my dad would say if he were on here is we understand the business a little bit and we like it. And we want to take care of our people. He would also say, and I agree with him on this, Nick, we have a lot more to do. And there's a lot more we can do. And we want to see that realized and be a part of it.
So you grow up, you have this family legacy of railroading, of this company. How did that inspire you and motivate you to become part of the transportation ecosystem?
I grew up riding horses competitively, and that taught me to love iterative processes. I like going out there every day and seeing how can we get a little better when and there are the challenges of, we as humans don't feel great every day. The horses are the same way. Every once in a while you both have a great day, but more often than not, one of you is a little off. There's so many variables that change there. And I say that because now that I work in rail, I think rail provides some of those same wonderful challenges. Like there's always more we can do to get better. There's always more we can do for our customers, or to be a little bit more efficient, or to be safer, or to train our people better. So that to me is inspiring. But how I bridged that gap was that I was really lucky that I went to college at Auburn University, and I was in the College of Business, wasn't sure what I wanted to major in, but supply chain was a smaller major in terms of the number of people in the program. And that appealed to me because I went to a fairly small school growing up. And I thought, well, I like puzzles and I kind of like math. So supply chain seemed like a fit. And then I worked for an industrial supply house doing an internship, company called Turner Supply, after I finished school. And then I came to work for the railroad, and I was working in the accounting department. And we had a woman who was going to go on maternity leave that did our accounts payable, and we were going to bring someone in externally to cover for her while she was out. And I said, well, I think I could do her job in addition to my own, never having done accounts payable. And luckily the business is still here. But I did do that, and it showed the man who ran our operations, Mark Miller, that I was willing to work pretty hard. And so he gave me the opportunity from there to go into customer service, and then to go into the transportation department. And so I trained as a conductor, I worked as a dispatcher, I worked as a train master. And that really made me love what we do and understand what we do so much better, and understand who was doing the work as well, which is a huge part of it. Yeah, so Mark giving me that opportunity, I think certainly changed my life, but most importantly, they're giving me the opportunity to work for him and learn from him. My dad is the person who's had the greatest influence on my life, but Mark Miller is certainly up there with my dad in terms of forming me.
It's tremendous that you had the opportunity to understand the railroad business from all of these different positions before you got into your current position, since there are so many angles to it and there's so many moving parts to it. And I have to imagine that doing that in your current role gives you so much of a greater understanding of what those who are reporting to you and employees who are reporting to them are going through on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and it helps me think about what we can offer customers, or sometimes if a customer brings us an opportunity, it might put me in a position to push the team a little bit more than they want to. But to your point, it's not intuitive how how slowly railroads go. And I know that sounds so basic, but my husband works for Boeing. And we, a couple of years ago, we were going to move our first intermodal unit train out of Mobile. And I wanted to go out and watch the train get put together. It was a big deal for our company to get right. It's a big deal that CN has given us that opportunity to operate in Mobile, and I wanted to see it, and I wanted to have the confidence to tell CN that everything went right, quite frankly. And so of course that was happening. We're putting the train together around midnight. And so my husband said, well, I'll go with you. And we're out standing in the yard with one of our transportation managers named Brandon Boyd. And Brian, my husband, is an engineer, so he's asking so many questions and he's super curious. But he was amazed by just how slow it is, right? Like how long it takes to put together this train. He's remarked to me a number of times since then, I just never imagined. But also he put it in context as we were talking about the weight of a rail car, and more importantly, how much weight a rail car can move. He said, every one of these cars is carrying the same amount of weight as a 737 can carry. So we're sitting there moving, a 10,000 foot train of how many 737s worth of capacity. And that was really cool to me, to put it in context that way. So I've been really lucky to spend time on the ground to learn about what we do in real time and to build relationships with my colleagues who understand it a lot better than I do, and who continue to teach me every day.
You call it luck. I would call it a choice. I think that not every railroad executive would have the same mentality of the importance of being on the ground and overseeing the actual operation of it. So it's to your credit that that's something that you view as important. And when we look at your customer base as a whole, let's talk about the customers, since they are what it's all about.
Absolutely.
What are some of the commodities that your railroad is carrying? You mentioned Southern Company with unit coal trains. You mentioned Canadian National Railway with intermodal. What are some of the other things that you're carrying for your customers?
On the energy side, it's pretty fun to look at the evolution of energy products that we move, because we've been moving coal for power production since the 1960s. What is now the Chevron refinery in Pascagoula opened around in the 60s as well. That's Chevron's largest wholly owned refinery. And so we get to move refined products for them, which they've been a terrific customer and partner. But in the modern fuel world, I suppose you could say, Enviva Biomass built a wood pellet mill on our railroad that opened up about 2 years ago. And so we are moving wood pellets from Lucedale, Mississippi to the port of Pascagoula, where they are being exported to Japan for power generation. And then last year, a company called OleoX took a chemical facility that's in the port of Pascagoula that was shut down, and OleoX bought this facility and reopened it, and they are making pre-treated biodiesel feedstock in that facility. And so we're getting to, play a role, a very, very small role, in this renewable fuel space. So that's been neat. Beyond those products, we move a fair bit of resins where we're doing storage and transit. Aggregates. Vulcan Materials is a terrific customer, and as I mentioned, Tyndall also uses those aggregates to make these structures that go into, or these components that go into things like parking garages, stadiums, schools, jails. So that's been pretty cool. We move a fair bit of specialty chemicals, steel, and then on the Alabama side, we mentioned the intermodal, where we get to move product for and with APM terminals, which is the container port in Mobile and CN. But over there, we're also moving a fair bit of wood products, chemicals, some grains. So a really robust mix there in Mobile. And then projects in development. In Mobile, we have a company called Raymont Logistics. It's a Canadian company, Nick. They're based out of Montreal. And Raymont is building a resin bagging facility on our railroad in Mobile. And we're proud that we're investing with them in that facility. And so that should open up later this year. So our resin carloads will hopefully be growing quite significantly there.
Wow. It sounds like you have a really strong base of customers, which makes it all the more commendable that then you have that and you're still looking to expand and strengthen that even further.
If you looked at the price of natural gas this morning, um, we hope Southern Company keep shipping coal and using their scrubbers to clean those emission or what they're emitting from that facility. We hope they use coal for decades to come, but we want to be a well-diversified business and to make sure that we're prepared for our people and all of our customers to weather any storm. And so we're just as proud of working with Southern Company as we are with working with some of our smaller customers. A kind of neat move that we started doing last year is there's a nonprofit called Jacob's Well that is moving water into Arizona and New Mexico in tank cars. And they're loading those tank cars here on Mississippi Export. So bring us your business. We would love to find a way to partner with you and make it economical.
Part of that growth that you've overseen is the formation of the Alabama Export Railroad. I'm curious as to what the factors were that led to the development of that.
Alabama Export Railroad, as we drive it, is about 30 minutes from our office, our home office in Moss Point, Mississippi. And CN is an important partner. They're an investor in this railroad. And Mobile is kind of the end of the line for a number of carriers. And so we had this idea that, look, guys, we have had some success with economic development over the decades and like doing that work. This is where we live and play, and maybe there's something that we could do together that would benefit both of our businesses, where we can provide that local hometown service, and Nick, our goal is really to grow business for CN there, right? I mean, they took a risk on us and given us that opportunity, and it needed to work well for them. And that's where we're so proud of what we've done with Raymont there, that they're coming in. We're proud of some of the transloads we've got going there. But it really came down to, we had a strong relationship with a partner. We saw an opportunity that could benefit both of us, and they took a chance and let us take over that operation, and it's worked well for us so far. And I hope if one of our partners at CN was on here, that they would say the same thing.
The Strasburg Railroad is an institution in the heritage railroad industry, and its mechanical services department is proud to lead the way. With the knowledge and experience that has created one of the most reliable steam railroading experiences in the country, the Strasburg Railroad is excited to offer their expertise to the rest of the industry. Strasburg's professional team provides consulting and technical assistance to take your steam locomotive or railcar project from idea to finished product. They stand behind their work and always strive to meet their customers' needs for quality, historic accuracy, and reliability at a price that is fair. Unlike many competitors, they feature a fully equipped boiler, railcar, and machine shop, so the work gets done in-house, helping you get more for your money. Send your inquiries to mechanical@strasburgrailroad.com and let the professionals get to work for you. Let's talk about your relationship with the Class 1s, because you've mentioned Canadian National a number of times, Kate, and then you also have interchanges with CSX and Pascagoula, Norfolk Southern and Mobile, and Hattiesburg, and CP Casey and Jackson. What are your relationships like with these Class 1 railroads? And I'm curious, too, if you've seen any differences in terms of the nature of the service with how precision scheduled railroading has come into the picture.
We have great relationships with the Class 1s that we get to work with. And internally, we have targets on how we want to grow volumes with all of them. Um, they're all really important to us, the Class 1s, and we want to perform for them so that we stay an important partner for them, because that benefits our customers today and tomorrow. We believe from an economic development standpoint that having that broad connectivity makes us more competitive in site selection processes, because it gives our customers broader access to markets, more competitive pricing. It's like no one wants to pay to fly out of an airport where there's only one carrier, you know? So from a service standpoint, we are finding service to be quite consistent with all of the carriers that we work with. We're fortunate that we have relationships, or I say we're fortunate, we've built relationships with their managers in the field, and try and do so at a higher level operationally as well. And then we try and stay close on the sales and marketing side, which I know we're a flea on their backs. And so we want to bring value, but we also want to protect or advocate for our customers. So all great partners. CSX has been a great partner for a long time. We do a lot with them. Something we've been really proud of internally in the last year was that CSX gave us a Shortline Marketing Award, where our traffic with them grew, I believe it was 260% year over year, which is really cool, you know? That was, it wasn't all just one customer. It wasn't like one new industry came online. It was, hey, we did more with Vulcan Materials. We did more with some resins customers around storage and transit. We set up a small transload for a shipper that's using CSX. CSX stepped in for a customer of ours in the fish oil space called Omega Protein, where they were having some issues with another carrier. CSX was able to deliver some better transit times. So that's cool to see. Norfolk Southern, we found, wants to create growth with us and wants to set targets. And so we really like working with their teams similarly. And they've been bringing a lot of energy. And then a neat thing about working with what was KCS is maybe they have a little bit more of that short line mindset, or maybe it's more that people there do a little bit more like what we do here at Mississippi Export, of people wear more hats, you know? So all of those railroads make us better. They're all willing to help. You can call and say, I have a question about this market, or I have this idea. And we find that they're willing to lean in and engage, which what more can you ask for, right? Not every opportunity is going to work, but we can have a conversation and we can try and flesh it out. So um, we're pretty happy. And even BN and UP, we don't interchange with directly, but we do have business that moves with both of those railroads. Coal has been the backbone of that for decades, but we find them both to be responsive. And um, when we throw something their way, they really step up to the plate and try and make it work.
It's interesting to hear your perspectives on working with them, and it's good that you feel like they have your back because you have theirs. It seems like it's good to have that mutually beneficial relationship, and especially things like what you described with CSX, being able to look out for those transload customers, because those transload customers may be only taking small carload amounts, but those carload amounts add up over time, and they're certainly a backbone for the industrial sector in your region.
Totally. And if we waited for every home run to come through, we'd be waiting for a long time. We want to hit those singles. And the great thing about a short line, I think, if you're a class one, is well, it's just more cars going to the interchange, but it's not adding another stop for them. It's not increasing the complexity of their network. And my dad has always taught me that we want to do business with people that bring knowledge, skills, and abilities to the table that we don't have, because that's what's going to make us better. And hopefully we do that for them too. Um, and with people that we like. We want to do business with people we like. But the class ones, our objectives are aligned where they they do such a beautiful job. I mean, it's really incredible what they accomplish with moving freight efficiently over the long haul and consistently. And we want to do all of the unique local service that we can to take care of a customer. We want our customers to be able to focus on what they do to make money and to get better at that. So if you're Chevron, hey, we want you to be able to just think about boiling oil and come to us with any rail related challenge you have, whether that's track, car repair, transloading, or moving your freight with all of our class one partners. And so we think that the relationship between the short lines and the class ones is really a symbiotic partnership.
Part of that development too, Kate, is something I saw on your website, the development of these business parks that you have along your line. You're talking about attracting the business. It's great when you have a line side industry or customer who can make use of your services. It's an even bigger victory if you're bringing a business to the area in part because they have a place to establish themselves that's right along your network. So how have you been involved with the development of those parks, and what kind of growth have you seen with them?
On the industrial development side, we have been doing Mississippi Export, the team here have been working for decades to secure and improve property. Because as anyone who's done that knows, it does not happen overnight. To find the right parcel, particularly when you're this close to the Gulf, and there are a lot of wetlands. And then to make sure that you've got the right utilities in place. Our George County Industrial Park, which is in Lucedale, is a great example of that. I think my dad started working on that in the 70s or 80s, where there was an idea for the park. And I think he worked with the county to have it designated as an industrial park, which took time. We had some land up there. We actually have about 1,200 acres up there. And when this idea of shovel-ready sites came along, Mississippi Power, the Southern company, really championed that, and they rolled out their own select site program and brought us into the fold on that pretty quickly. And so that's where you have all the certification work done on property so that if an industrial user came along, they could be constructing in under 12 months, is what you're saying. And so in that industrial park in Georgia County, we had our property certified. So we had all the utilities, we had the phase ones and the wetlands and archaeological, et cetera. But we've seen places where we would get feedback on, hey, natural gas needs to be better. Like the power at that site was really the strongest utility presence there for a while. But we've been doing this crab walk of working really closely with the county and the state, where the county's gone and gotten grants to improve the natural gas connectivity or upgrade the water. And the state's been really supportive, and we've worked with the natural gas supplier. And so all that being said, we've done this crab walk along to really improve the connectivity of the other utilities there, which we think makes the site better positioned to land an industrial rail user. And in Viva Biomass shows that, hey, that's worked out. And Viva, I think, is moving about 8,000 carloads a year over Mississippi export. That's beautiful. And we think and hope they will expand their production at that facility. In our Helena Industrial Park, we've been through the same process. As I mentioned earlier, my dad recruited a customer there called Tyndall. We also, Airgas has a small facility in there. We built a warehouse there a little over a decade ago, where a company called Heniff Transportation does some liquid transloading and warehousing. Heniff has one of the larger tank truck fleets, I believe, in the country. And we are about to build a tank car qualification facility there. So we'll be able to qualify tank cars, blast and paint, clean cars, sort of soup to nuts. So continuing to round out our rail car repair abilities. But we still have about 140 acres there that are certified shovel ready, both through Mississippi Power's program and now through one of the class ones shovel ready programs, CNs. And we'd love to do that with any of the other class ones as well. And something we're actively working on in terms of site development is in Mobile. After we got the operation going there and everything was pretty stable, we started saying, well, there's not a lot of land left to develop around our railroad here. And development is going to drive the future of our railroads. And so we identified really the only dry remaining property around that rail line, and over the course of a few years have put together about 170 acres through a few purchases, and now are in the process of having that property certified as shovel ready, and are looking at how best to densify it. Is the right thing to do to perhaps build some warehousing there to complement what the Port of Mobile is doing with its container operations? Is there some light manufacturing that we could bring in? So that's been a fun journey.
It sounds like it continues to be a fun journey. And of course, it's a journey made possible by your employees. You alluded earlier to the fact that you see your company as always investing in its employees. What are some of the ways in which you do that?
It starts with finding talent. I think we have strong people in our HR department, and strong managers, so that I'll give an example. Our superintendent of maintenance of way, Ryan Van Bossen, is terrific at at hiring, I believe. And when I say that, he's identifying people who have skill sets not only that benefit them in the role that they're coming into, but where he can see how they will grow with the company, because we want our people to have opportunities to grow and to learn. And so we have a young man that Ryan hired in the last few years in the maintenance of way department, um, as part of the Thai gang. And his name is Trey. Trey's been done great work there, but Trey has some electrical training and education. And so we had a signal maintainer position open up in the last few months. And that was something that Ryan thought Trey would be a good fit for, and Trey interviewed for and was interested in. And so he was hired. And let's see, Trey is here this week, but he's been traveling 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off to go have some formal training around signal maintenance. And then our folks who do signal maintenance here, I think, are really good teachers. And so they're spending a lot of time in the field with Trey, teaching him and showing him, what happens when the rubber meets the road outside of the classroom. So I think despite how small we are, we have a team that does a good job of exploring the resources that we have available or that we can put in place to train people, so that we get the formal and the informal. And we do try and reach out beyond our organization for that training, given that we're small and that we want to broaden our people's exposure. And again, I think that's somewhere that Ryan has been particularly good, because he had this interesting background when he came to us of not only having a really strong knowledge base around track construction and maintenance, but he had a specific interest in training and development, and had actually done a stint as a training manager at NICD. And so that's been a beautiful marriage of skills.
That's great that you're able to provide him the opportunity to be able to learn both from within your company and bring outside ideas as well. That feels like something that benefits everybody in the process.
And I think that's a neat thing about a small business, where when someone comes in, well, we tell people in the interview process, we are a small business, we're a small team, everyone does so many different things. And I think that makes people better problem solvers when they feel a broader responsibility, because they also have a broader exposure to lean on when a problem or a challenge presents itself. And I think our people work really well as a team. And so we do a good job of relying on each other to address challenges or opportunities. And so I think there's just a level of training of, if you want to be a part of a team where there's a lot of opportunity, but also you're going to have a lot of responsibility, there's going to be a lot of learning with it too. So that's a fun thing about working in a short line railroad, I think.
Something that I saw from your website is that one of the various forms of investment that you value is investment in your community. It talked about partnering with a local railroad museum, as well as being involved with STEAM, as in STEAM, education. Why are those initiatives important for you?
We all work so that we can go home to our families at night and spend time with the people we love and provide for them. And our communities are an extension of that. That's where we live our lives. It's our friends, it's our families, it's the people educating our kids. And our communities are our customers too. Also, here in Mississippi and here in Alabama, our community partners are really important partners in growth for our businesses. So in pursuing an economic development and providing workforce training resources and making this a place that people want to live and work and play. And so we feel that just as our communities have given to us in providing nice places to live and be educated, we want to give back to those communities and see what we can do to make them a little better. It's one of those, symbiotic relationships. We just feel like it's the right thing to do. So in our rail car repair business, our superintendent there, Matt Frafogel, and one of our managers in transportation, Brandon Boyd, the two of them have worked with the high school here in Pascagoula, where the high school has a welding program as part of a technical track. And they've given opportunities for students there to learn about what we do specifically in the rail car repair space, but more broadly at the railroad. So they've gone in and spoken at the school, but also we bring students on site because we want people to be thinking about what would a career at a railroad look like? Would I enjoy that? Would I learn? How could I fit in there? We've worked with the University of South Alabama, which is a local university, to bring in interns. We're thinking about bringing talent in for our company for the future, yes, but also helping people think about railroads. And that there are great careers to be had here. And there's a lot of that good, challenging work to be done. You can make a difference. We believe.
My last question for you, Kate, is at the end of the day, when you look at the work that you're involved with, that your team is involved with, what do you enjoy the most? And what gives you the greatest sense of satisfaction?
Oh, what gives me the greatest satisfaction is working with our team and our customers on, you can call it a problem, an opportunity, a challenge, but digging into something and figuring out a way to make it better, and doing so with other people. That's super motivating to me. And we have great customers that we get to work with on that we learn a lot from. And I'm learning from my colleagues on that every day. So to me, that's the most fun part of our work.
It's clear that you are at the helm of a railroad that is truly proud to be a railroad and making the most of those opportunities afforded. Kate, thank you so much for joining us here on the Roundhouse today to talk about your business. I always tell folks, especially those who aren't familiar with railroading, I tell them the short lines are where it's at. You never see them in the national news, but the short lines are where it's really at. And yours is clearly proof of that. Thank you so much.
Oh, Nick, thank you. Thank you for your kind words and for doing this. And this was fun.
And now, the question of the day.
Last time on the Roundhouse, we were talking to Bob Laprelle, president of Museum of the American Railroad in Frisco, Texas, which led to the question, what is one particularly special interaction that you've had working or volunteering for a tourist railroad or museum? And I had a few responses that I want to share with you today. First, Zach Lybrand sent me an email, and I'm paraphrasing because he gave a few paragraphs, wonderful description, but told a story about how he got started at the Museum of the American Railroad, met someone there who got him to move to Spencer, North Carolina to work at North Carolina Transportation Museum, then met someone there who got him to move to the Grand Canyon Railroad, and now he works for the Dallas, Garland, and Northeastern Railroad as a conductor and volunteers at the Museum of the American Railroad. He credits that place for giving him his start, and I think it's great that he gets to be part of the cycle of learning and inspiring others. So thank you for sharing that story, Zach. Trevor Park writes, when I worked for Roaring Camp in Big Trees, our conductor noticed the name Kimball on one of the tickets he was collecting. He asked if they were related to Disney animator Ward Kimball. Turns out they were. It was Ward's daughter, Chloe Kimball, Chloe's daughters, and grandchildren. The conductor asked us if we could give them a tour of the cab. The engineer and I did them one better and invited all of them to ride in the cab of the Dixiana with us down the mountain. Turns out this was their grandchildren's first time seeing a steam locomotive, much less riding in one. We got to give them the experience that their great-grandfather surely would have wanted them to have, and at the same time helped Ward's daughter and granddaughters relive childhood memories. The whole family was so thankful for this experience, and it was a highlight of my career thus far. Thank you for sharing your story with us, Trevor. It's always good to hear about these opportunities we have to bring people a wonderful experience through rail preservation. Your question of the day for this episode is, what is a railroad company that you feel has an impressive legacy? Let me know on the roundhousepodcast.com. Links to social media are there. I've been traveling a lot this summer, guys, and I've had the opportunity to meet some of you in person. If you're one of these people, then it was great getting a chance to talk with you. And if I haven't met you yet, hopefully someday our paths cross. Thank you for listening, and remember, as always, that the Roundhouse is our house.